For today's lesson, we'll be talking about the number system, and this is our third unit. So what the number system is just a way to organize numbers. Based on their type and characteristics. So basically look for things in common about numbers, and it allows you to give them a certain name. For example, we know what decimals are. They have a decimal point. We know what fractions are. So one number over another written in fraction form. And we also know what whole numbers are. So whole numbers, we're going to give kind of a fancier definition here, a more official definition, so that we can then use that term to define the topic of today's lesson, which is integers. All right, so starting with whole numbers. Whole numbers are positive numbers with no fraction or decimal parts. All that means is 0 and then the numbers that we use to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 forever. But it can't be a fraction and it can't be a decimal. So 1.5 doesn't work. 2 1/3 doesn't work. So we can't have fractions or decimals mixed in. Otherwise, it's not a whole number. So that leads us to our definition of what's called an integer. Integers are the exact same thing as whole numbers, except they can be positive or they can be negative. All right, so this also includes 0, since 0 is a whole number. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can do what's called a negative number. So you could say like -4, -3, -2, -1, 0. And this list actually goes forever in the negative direction. But it also would keep going the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, forever, forever. Okay? So as long as it's a whole number, positive or negative, then it's an integer. Let's practice using these words, okay? So we're going to sort these numbers into the diagram. And you want to put them into the smallest box possible. So if a number is an integer, but it's also a whole number, then you want to put it in the whole numbers box. So as far into the diagram as it can go. Because the further in you go, the more specific that term is. Okay, so let's start. -2. Well, whole numbers have to be positive, but integers can be negative, so it'll fit here. 5. 5 is an integer because it's a positive whole number, but it's also just a whole number. -8, since it's negative, has to go in the integers box. 16 is an integer, but more specifically, it's a whole number because it's positive and doesn't have a fraction or a decimal part. Now, 0 is also both, so it can go all the way down in the diagram under whole numbers. Same for 100. It's an integer, but it's also more specifically a whole number. Now, -5, because it's negative, belongs in the integers box. We cannot put it in the whole numbers box due to the negative. Okay? Now, let's see what these numbers look like on the number line. So if we start, we have -1. We're going to plot it and label it. So on my number line, I see -1 is right here. So there's -1. 7, it's positive, so I'm going to look on the positive side. And then we have 0 right in the center. Notice that above 0, positive. Below 0, negative. So next up, -9. So we got to go below 0, -9. 2, we have to go above 0 to 2. And then -3. Go all the way back here to -3. Okay? So negative numbers are to the left. Positive numbers are to the right of 0. Okay. Next up, positive and negative numbers have a lot of keywords that indicate positive versus negative. Okay, so we have a list here. I'm just going to read through it with you. So for negative numbers, something like the word O or debit, those mean negative. A decrease would be a negative thing. A withdrawal means to take money out of the bank, would be a negative. Loss is negative. Expense, like the word spend, is a negative. Below is negative, and so is electron, and that's actually a science term. Okay, you'll notice our house names are all in here. So for 0, we have neutral or neutron, which means zero charge as far as neutron. And then a term that we see a lot is at sea level. Basically, 0 is your starting point. It's your point that you're comparing to. It's like the middle. Like if you think about our number line, 0's in the middle between positive and negative numbers. All right, so lastly, positive, here's some key words. Increase, gain, rise. So anything that means to go up. Deposit, proton, which is a science word, but it means a positive charge, and above. So anything that means to go up or to increase in some way is a positive keyword. All right, let's practice. I'm going to make sure we can see our list too. So for number 1 through 8, write the integer, meaning like -3 or 25 or 0. That's described. So we got to check for a keyword, and then we got to use the number that they give us. So we've got depositing, and I see deposit right here. That's a positive word. So this is positive 175. And you can, if you want, you can put a plus sign, but if a number doesn't have a symbol in front of it, we say that it's positive. All right, owing your friend money. Owing somebody money is a negative, so that's going to be a -25. If the temperature is 9 degrees below 0, that would mean a -9. If you gain 35 experience points in Prodigy, that's a positive 35. If there's a decrease in elevation of 300 feet, that's a negative 300. You can see that right here. Carbon has 6 protons. That word protons was in our positive list, so it's just 6. A submarine is at sea level. Remember, at sea level just means 0. And a bank account is overdrafted by $67. I don't see this word, but overdrafted sounds like spending too much money. So I'm going to go with a -67. All right, now lastly, just to reflect here, where would you see these kinds of positive and negative numbers in real life situations? Think about some of our keywords.